Greetings, greetings, family. This is Brother Dawood. Yes, I know it's been a long time, and I made a promise that I was gonna drop 2 videos before, and I do apologize. Due to this weather and how I've been lately. I've been having like a little tiny health issues, but I'm here. Today I want to touch on the one and only Glenn Metz. Yep, Glenn Metz. I want to say like, he came into his reign and or his supremacy in 1985, but prior to his rise and solidifying his position as a kingpin or big timer in New Orleans, he was considered the dime bag hustler at the time, and he used to peddle his weed and the Calliope project on Galvez. And, Galvez is like the street that's like divide or separate the front of town from the back of town. And I want to like touch on how he came into his position and how he became the Glenn Metz that we all know of as today. You follow? Like I said, he was from he's from the Calliope. He's from the old side, back of town Calliope, which extends from Galvez to Durgeward or Durgeward Court. Also of the LD or the last driveway, which is like down the street from like the Rose Tavern. The Rose Tavern, which is across the street from the Delia Courtway. But when you go straight down the street from the Rose Tavern all the way down, that's the LD or the last driveway or Durgeward Court. The whole Calliope was there, all the courtways, the front of town, the back of town, the old side and the new side. All 8 courtways was there. But for some reason, it's like we had some power hitters that came out of that old side, back of town. Which is something. Master P and his brothers, they from the old side. They was from Miro Courtway. Glenn Metz is from the old side, and I believe, there's different stories. Some people say that Meatball wasn't from the Calliope, but then some people say that he was from the Calliope from the old side too. But like I said, the whole project was Darrow. They had a lot of hitters that came out of the old side, but the Delia Court always gets its rep for being the most gutter or the most worst part out of the whole projects. You follow? Now, before all this, Sam Scully was on top of the dope game in New Orleans. He was from the front of town part of the Calliope, and he was like the main supplier of people that was getting a hustle on at that time throughout the city. He had powder shops scattered throughout the city, and little crevices and all that. And he had like lieutenants over certain shops. But some felt that his way of doing things was becoming obsolete, and they wanted a change. So Sam, being from Calliope, and some of the people that was within the Calliope that he had governing certain powder shops throughout the city, felt that they wanted to change, they wanted to take over. And situation came about, and it rises up which resulted in Sam Scully being taken out of circulation. You follow? And it was rumored or said that he was rubbed out by Gennaro Meatball After, or Meatball, that a lot know him by, and that he was a henchman for Glenn Metz. Now I want to bring up something on Glenn Metz. You know, when he came into like supremacy or to the rise, you know, he was bigger than what Sam Scully was at his time. You know, he had took his earnings from being the part of that whole network in the Calliope, and he had formed alliances. You know, he took his money that he made from hustling, and he formed different alliances across the city through different hoods like that of like the St. Thomas, the Desire Project before it went down a long time ago. You had the Magnolia that he was connected with, the Melphamine, the Fisher, etc. You follow? And he recruited, you know, a team of enforcers to help, you know, him pave his way into taking over the drug game. You know, like I said, they felt that, you know, or Glenn and his team felt that, you know, there was a new way of how to do things, and they could make more money, because when they all was together in the Cali, you know, they was doing good. But when the big money started coming in, you know, eyebrows started rising, and different thoughts came in to say, wait a minute, we want our own thing now. We don't want to be a part of it. We don't want to be part of the team no more. And this whole thing resulted in like the split within the projects, and the split within the ranks and everything. And Glenn, being one of them ones, he decided to break off. So, you know, Calliope, it was a little rowdy at the time, but not worse until when Glenn got into position, or the death of Sam Scully. So now, right, when Sam Scully was robbed out in 1987 on Martin Luther King Drive in the Calliope, you know, there was situations that was going on, different wars and fights and beefs going on. But while this is all going on, Glenn Metz, he had recruited, you know, some enforcers, like I told you, to take over the drug game. And one of the enforcers that he brought in was by the name of Gerald Nap Elwood. You know, and before Nap hooked up with, or prior before he hooked up with Glenn Metz, he wasn't nobody to mess with. You know, he was that dude that, you know, ain't take no shorts, and he was that dude that just, you know, was somebody not to mess around with. So Glenn sought out and partner up with Nap, so he could be part of the Metz family, or the Metz gang, so to say. You follow? And now another person that he sought out to become part of the organization was Gennaro Meatball After, you know, who was known for putting in work prior to getting down with Glenn Metz. You know, it's crazy because he got the name Meatball due to coming to school with a messed up haircut, and his teammates and his classmates and them was laughing at the haircut that he had, and somebody in the classroom blurted out and a joke like Meatball because of how his hair and his haircut looked. So he got the name Meatball from a haircut. But Meatball or Arthur on Gennaro, he got his start in robbing people. You know, he used to run up to dice games with a pistol to everybody, you know, get on the ground or face to the wall, empty their pockets out. And, you know, he was, if you ain't respond fast enough, he was hitting you with those points. So, you know, he was hitting you with those bullets, so to say. So, you know, and plus he was you know, he'd pick up the contract on if they had a hit on somebody's head or stick on somebody or, you know, a price tag on somebody's head. You know, Meatball take that job. You know, he used to dress up and drag to get up close on his target to rub him out. You know, he used to have have a wig on, right? Or he'd put on a wig and like female clothes like blouse and all that, and carry his head out, and he had sneakers on, and a lot of time people ain't realize that he was up on them till it was too late. And what gave him away sometimes when he was out putting out the hits was them sneakers that he had on, you know. Like, who is this lady walking with this wig on, female clothes on with these sneakers, and blah, they was out of there, you know. This is some of the stories that's put out there about how Meatball was, you know, and it was said that Glenn Metz had a special armor plated pickup truck with the words homicide on the hood and black and villain on the sides of this armor truck, and that when people used to see this truck that Nap and Meatball had, that people would run. They it was like bad news is coming, so people would run, and they knew what time it is, and they knew what was gonna go down when they saw that truck in the area. So like people did not mess around when they seen that Ford pickup truck. They knew that when you saw that truck, that business is about to happen. You know, something's about to go down. You know. So another person that Glenn Metz had also recruited was a person by the name of Marlo Hemstetter. You know, he was a young dude. He was like a young teen that was putting in work. You know, Marlo was known for slanging that iron. You know, he was a child sort of way, a young dude, and it was said of people don't know that Marlo Hemstetter himself, as a young dude, was one of the dudes that had really put Calliope on the map throughout the whole city, you know? Like, he was traveling throughout uptown, and he was putting in work. He was that dude that was a beast out there, you heard? And, you know, people respected Marlo, game his hustle, that, you know, he was like another level of Meatball, so to say. But his name ain't out there like that. But, you know, it is out there, but people had that respect for Marlo, because he was young, and he ain't fuck around, you know. So that's what it is. And it was said that Marlo had got juvenile life before, and that while he was in the youth house or the home that he was in, you know, the detention hall center, that members of the Metz gang came through and broke him out and brought him back to the streets. Now this is the time in New Orleans when those U-Haul trucks was out there, you know, and that's another thing too. You know, you had the truck with Glenn Metz and that, but you also had them U-Haul trucks that was being incorporated into the business plan of Glenn Metz. You know, these U-Haul trucks was used for kidnapping. You know, they kidnap a joker, put him in that U-Haul truck, touch him up a little bit, bring him to the boss man, and they have a sit down, like what it is, you know. And there was like a, how can I say it, with this U-Haul, with this kidnapping, it was like a I'm trying to use the right word because I don't want to it's like ransoming off. Like if it's a certain situation that went down, it was like, yeah, we what's going on, who's responsible for this and that, and they'll call up a certain family member, and or anybody that was rocking with their competitors, and put them on the phones and act and tell them that if you want to see such again, either do X, Y, Z, or this person, you ain't gonna see this person no more. You know, this is that them U-Haul trucks was incorporated. Like I told you, it was used as a kidnapping and murdering and a transport and a struggling smuggling tool. You follow? But another person who I want to touch on is his wife, Danielle Metz. You know, she was on some married to the mall type stuff, you know what I'm saying? Some say she was his right hand man, well, his right hand business partner. Like she was responsible for helping manage the daily family operation. You know, and I remember there was an interview where Danielle stated that she didn't even know that he was a drug dealer or something like that, and she talked about how he had this, you know what I'm saying, this $12,000 chain. You know, it was like, it had the words encrusted, Glenn Metz love, cash money. You know, you could see that, like Google that interview she mentioned, you know. And also I remember when she mentioned that they used to go on these lavish trips. Like they used to go to like Vegas and all that stuff. And you know, and he'd be splurging, like he'd have big money. Like he used to hit the casinos up and all that, and was spending money like it ain't a thing, you know. And that she said that he was abusive too. And that he had on lockdown to where, you know, she can't even talk back to him or nothing like that. And that if she didn't obey his rules and stuff like that, you know, there's a consequence, you know. So she said he used to abuse her and all that. But you know how it is. And it was said that the gang had like, they had that work, that cocaine, you know, like cartel level coming from Houston, and that work was being smuggled in the city. Excuse me, on helicopters and stuff like that, and 18-wheeler trucks and U-Haul trucks and all that. That work was being smuggled in the city, you know, and that they had the police on payroll, you know, to make sure that these cargoes is being protected and not being intercepted by other forces that was in the law enforcement, you know, that, you know, people was on the payroll, you know, people within the courts and law enforcement also played a part in helping or protecting the Glenn Metz game or Glenn Metz investments, you know. And what it was with this whole thing with Glenn Metz and his gang, like they had incorporated killing into their business plan. Like, you know, this was like they had intimidation tactics. They used intimidation tactics so that nobody could sell if there wasn't scoring from Glenn Metz. Nobody. That's how they set it up. And they wasn't playing around, and they meant business. And I'm trying to, yeah, at this time when Glenn Metz and them was rocking, you know, the Tuesday crew was out there too, you know. They was doing their thing on the level. Like, I remember P mentioned how he was just, you know, a young dude out there, not doing nothing major, just doing this thing, like, you know, getting little outfits and stuff like that, little motorbikes and stuff to have fun, you know. But, you know, the Tuesday crews around at that time when Glenn Metz and them and his own gang and them was rocking, you know, they wasn't like necessarily, like, they was like somewhat connected, but they wasn't a part of the Glenn Metz gang and stuff like that, you know. And you know, the Glenn Metz gang and them, you know, they was like they had activities like a lot of the activities from the family of racketeering, you know. They was extorting people, you know. They was money laundering, you know. Of course, murder was into it, you know, robbing, and I said it before, the drug trafficking, you know. And I told you that they main ingredient for power or staying in a position of power was by killing anyone who tried to compete with their business or who wasn't part of their network. Like, if you sold drugs within the city, you had to cop your stuff or your work from Glenn Metz. No ifs or buts. And if they find out that you was trying to operate independent of their family or their gang, there was consequences. And like I said, those boys was put out there, you know, Meatball and Nap, you know, and Marlo, and a couple of other ones that was part of you know, the Glenn Metz gang or family, so to say. You follow? Like I said, they had shops set up in like every project, so to say. You know, you had your lieutenants, your capos, and your soldiers and your runners in each project. And Glenn Metz used to run all them projects, and he used to make sure that check up on his work too. And people was out there to make sure that there was no form of independency trying to rise up under or against the Metz family. You follow? So now, you know, you have a period of when I call it the prosperity period, where they were scoring, you know, everything was in their hand, the world was in their hand, the ball was in their court, you know. They used to do these big block parties throughout the city. Like, each project had like a block party a certain time, you know. I remember yeah, and that song Manny Fresh, he mentioned Big Baller. That was titled Big Baller, where he mentioned, he said 10 years ago a friend of mine, he said, bumped into him in a second line, and then he said he met me for Nap and Glenn Metz. He said, why don't you do the DJ in the projects or in the jets? You know, Manny Fresh was talking about or reminiscing or confirming that of which Glenn Metz used to do, you know, those big block parties and stuff, where you had people from like all over coming out to whatever party was having these projects, having these big block parties and all that, you know. And you had times like when like, you know, they used to hit like all the hoods, like when all the holidays and came up, giving up a whole bunch of stuff. And I hear about the whole Halloween stories, how they used to give out all these big bags of candy to the kids, and Glenn Metz used to get into this guerrilla costume going around, you know, scaring the kids and all that. There's a lot of, if you know anybody from the NO that grew up at the time, they'll tell you that Glenn Metz, especially from the projects, that Glenn Metz used to come do with that guerrilla uniform. I mean that costume, scared the kids and stuff. And that's another thing too that people don't know about Glenn Metz, that he was encouraging, certain young people to go to school for trades and stuff like that. Get a skill under their belt. He had this program that he was doing too, with like an auto mechanic program where he was teaching young dudes on how to fix cars and all that. And I don't know, about the mechanic place that was over there by the Calliope, close to where Booker T was located at. It was an auto mechanic place. That's actually the same place that they kept doing that work on that Ford pickup truck that Nap and Glenn Metz was doing a hits in, so to say. You follow? But this the prosperity period. But now you have a period to where different events came up, which was resulting in the fall and the decline of the Metz reign, or supremacy or rule. There was the Earhart Express incident that took place. It was like I believe in 1990. Different rumors and different things stated that it was somebody that was a competition against the Metz gang. I can't remember the name right now who it was, but it was said that it was Marlo Hempstetter. Some say Nat, but a majority of people say that Meatball, that they was on the Earhart Expressway, and there was a couple their competitors, or they competition of Glenn Metz. They caught them slipping away, and that when they drove up on the car of they rivals, that they pulled out AK-47s, them assault rifles, and started blasting, and I believe that one of the dudes that got hit up in that Earhart Express ambush survived. But and those rumors, and some people said that Meatball wasn't even there. Some people said it was Meatball. Some people said it was. But from this incident, it was said that Meatball fled. Like, it's the time when he bounced, he left, and left because he was trying to change his life or something like that, so to say, and that he went to Seattle, Washington, But at this time, this was when the feds came in town and was trying to, like, really shut down the Metz operation, And another incident happened to where there was this video going around. I don't know if any of y'all seen Gangland, the Cabrini Green episode on Gangland. Remember on New Year's, it had them coming out of that building in the projects, shooting guns up in the air like a whole bunch of dudes. Well, it was a situation that like this going on in New Orleans. I don't know if it was in the Calliope. I don't know what hood it was in, but it was like they got dudes coming out with guns shooting in the air, like just for fun. And they said that one of the dudes that was on the video doing the shooting was Glenn Metz. That's what was said. But it was like when they viewed the tape, they seen a gentleman that had long hair, a couple of dudes, but long hair. And I know that at one point, Glenn Metz, I think he either had braids or something like that, or long hair, but they was trying to say that from the video that it was Glenn Metz. So now the feds coming in, they started coming in, swooping down, grabbing members of the Metz gang because of that Earhart Express ambush. It's like around 90 or 91. And that videotape. And they started like bringing up different charges and crimes that the Metz gang had fostered out there on the streets, and two of the members that was out and that was being a manhunt out for was Danielle Metz and Meatball Gennaro. Gennaro Meatball After, who fled to Seattle, Washington. So the majority, the people that was part of the Metz gang, they was rounded up, locked up, and had to wait for a court date. And I believe they caught Danielle first, and then Meatball was caught, in Seattle, Washington, working as a dishwasher. And he was extradited back to New Orleans for a court hearing, arrested, but court hearing and all that. Like the whole Metz family had, it had like a mass court case with them. You had Glenn Metz, you had Danielle, you had Marlo Henstetter, you had Nap Elwood, Tolliver, a couple of them, and they all got like life sentences for a lot of the ills and things that they got charged for. A lot of stuff that happened within the city, as far as like deaths and for distribution of cocaine and racketeering. It was like a lot of charges they hit the Metz family with. So Glenn Metz and Marlo Henstetter, they felt like cheated in a way on how the courts did them, because they was like there was no evidence that they did these things, and that they felt that they didn't get a fair trial, so they was trying to get another get the whole thing overthrown, because prior to this arrest and this rounding up of all the Metz gang members, or family I should say, Glenn Metz didn't have no record. He never had a criminal record. He didn't have nothing on his jacket. His jacket was clean. No record at all. So he wound up getting sentenced to life. All of them that was part of the majority, like the head ranks of the Glenn Metz family or gang was got life. So this the decline and the fall of Glenn Metz and his gang, or the family, was the coming up and rise of Richard Pena, who was one of the ones that was coming in slowly but surely, competing with Glenn on days of falling. You follow? And a lot of the deaths and the lifestyles and actions that took place in New Orleans stems from that which the Glenn Metz family had sparked. And one of them being the death of Scully, Clay, and the tactics that they used or they incorporated into their business plan. And a lot of different gangs incorporated that same action or method into their business plan. Kill or be killed, or kill those who try to step on our toes or come between our hustle. You follow? A lot of different gangs mimic Glenn Metz business format. And a lot of the rappers, you have different rappers that mention, Glenn Metz in them and their music because of the respect they have for him. One of them being that of Master P, who mentioned Glenn Metz in a couple of his songs on his album. You had another one by the name of Magnolia, Movine. He's a artist from out of the Magnolia. You had I know you know Crazy from 504 Boys from out of the Albertville, but he had a song titled My Dog, You My Dog, and he had a artist featured on that song by the name of Lyric, who mentioned Glenn Metz on that song. He said something about hustling like Glenn Metz, like it's a yay fest. And, had Soldier Slim, who mentioned Glenn Metz a couple of times. You had Cito from the Magnolia Boys, who mentioned him, and Hot Bizzle, who's a member of the Magnolia Boys. And I noticed one thing too about the Magnolia. They had a lot of those dudes out of Magnolia. For some reason, they loved Glenn Metz. You always hear them mentioning how things was in the Glenn Metz days. And you hear them always mentioning him. Another artist that mentioned him too was Calliope that mentioned Glenn Metz. You had Calliope Papa that mentioned him. And you had Chaotic, and there's maybe more, but this in this day and time right now, Glenn Metz's wife was just granted clemency not too long ago. Presidential clemency to Barack Obama for her freedom. Because she didn't have no record, and she stated that she didn't even know that he was of that lifestyle, but then you have other people saying different. I'm just gonna leave it like that. And right now, Glenn Metz family, his son, Glenn Metz Jr. right now had people sign the petition that he put out for Glenn Metz Sr., his father, to get out, because for a person for his first offense, they felt that he got railroaded and didn't get a fair trial. So Glenn Metz Jr. is out there putting in the work to make sure that his father get out. You follow? And you hear a lot of different stories from people that was locked up and it was in the company of Glenn Metz, and they said how Glenn Metz helped them do their time and helped them get tied in with the Lord and all that, and giving people a lot of good advice and all that. Like, we'll hear about all the bad stuff from these guys, like the Sam Scullys and the Glenn Metzes, but you'll never hear the good that they done. But that's what that is. So free Glenn Metz. That's what it is. But this family, the Glenn Metz family, was the one who really ushered in that killing machine mentality within the city of New Orleans with that hustling. You follow? I'm Audi like an old school 500 XEL. Shalom. Salam.